Greetings, everyone. My name is Opelia, and I was born and raised in Maryland, a serene place adorned with tree-lined streets and sprawling landscapes. I spent most of my childhood there, immersed in simple yet cherished routines. My mother was a graceful and kind-hearted woman, always smiling at me, from the early morning hours as she prepared breakfast in our cozy little kitchen until late evening. My father, a man of few words, was hardworking and dependable, carrying the weight of his responsibilities with quiet determination. In my memory, life seemed flawless, or so I believed. But at the age of 15, my world came crashing down. My mother passed away suddenly due to an illness so swift that I barely had time to grasp what was happening. The void her absence left behind only grew with time. I watched as my father, once steadfast, became consumed by solitude in a house that had once been filled with warmth and laughter. Each morning, I attended school. Each night, I returned to a home that felt both familiar and foreign. Though the same simple meals were prepared in the kitchen, my mother's presence was missing, and every dinner was shared between just my father and me. Yet, the emotional distance between us grew far greater than the physical boundaries of the house. When I turned 18, my father's remarriage took me by surprise. Though I knew he deserved happiness, the reality was difficult to accept. His new wife, my stepmother, was a kind and gentle woman, and together they welcomed a son, Lucian, who was only a year old at the time. Their presence felt like a reversal of my world, a strange new chapter that left me feeling displaced. Life at home changed. I found myself struggling to connect with this unfamiliar family dynamic. My father, perhaps trying to adapt, remained mostly silent, mirroring my own unease. Our evenings together were peculiar. While my father and stepmother talked about their plans, Lucian and I exchanged uncertain glances, sharing an unspoken tension that I couldn't quite define. As time went on, I began noticing small gestures from Lucian. Though he rarely spoke, he often left little offerings for me, an act so subtle yet oddly meaningful. At first, I dismissed these moments as nothing more than a younger sibling's way of reaching out. But his lingering gazes left me questioning whether I was overanalyzing his actions, or if there was something deeper beneath the surface. Before long, I found myself feeling unsettled in his presence. My heart would race whenever he was near, a sensation I couldn't ignore but wished I could. Despite my best efforts to suppress these feelings, they seemed to grow stronger, shifting the dynamic between us into uncharted territory. Late at night, I would often hear Lucian's quiet footsteps in the hallway. He would enter my room, sometimes to exchange a few words, other times to simply sit in silence. One evening, his gaze lingered longer than usual, his expression holding an intensity I couldn't decipher. I felt the weight of unspoken words between us, yet I couldn't bring myself to ask or to understand what they meant. And so, I found myself caught in an unexpected whirlwind of emotions that left me questioning everything I thought I knew. The atmosphere between us felt peculiar. A stifling silence lingered, leaving me bewildered. As I struggled with my thoughts, I slightly tilted my head, silently urging him to stay a little longer. We sat there in the dim light, enveloped by shadows, while two strangers nearby seemed inexplicably drawn to Lucian. My brother possessed a certain charm that even I couldn't entirely dismiss. At times, I wondered if I was wrong to feel this way. Guilt gnawed at me because Lucian was my sibling in name. However, those unsettling thoughts often flickered away, dismissed by logical reasoning. The closeness of living under the same roof, or the simple bond of two young people navigating life together. Our rooms were adjacent on the second floor, separated by thin walls, while our father and stepmother slept downstairs. This arrangement occasionally led to awkward moments between us. I was a first-year college student, adjusting to academic life, while Lucian, a senior in high school, was engrossed in preparing for pivotal exams. Amid this new routine, an undeniable tension grew between us. Some evenings, after school, we would sit on the couch in front of the television, the glow from the screen casting soft light across the room. Despite the proximity, we rarely spoke, the silence heavy with unspoken words. I couldn't ignore my feelings for Lucian, though I didn't know how to articulate them. These emotions transcended familial affection, leaving me both confused and restless. Whenever our paths crossed, like in the hallway when our eyes met, my heart raced. His gaze held a mysterious depth that left me unsettled, yet intrigued. One peaceful evening, unlike any other, our parents departed on a 5-day trip. Left alone, Lucien and I anticipated a quiet break under no adult supervision. That night, we gathered in the living room. Neither of us was particularly interested in starting a romantic movie, but we needed something to pass the time. I prepared some dried squid, indulged in a few slices of fruit, and opened some beer cans after a hectic week. The ambiance was casual, even comforting, until the movie abruptly displayed an intense scene of two lovers locked in an embrace. For reasons I couldn't comprehend, the atmosphere shifted. The easy conversation and light laughter that had filled the room earlier disappeared, replaced by an oppressive quiet. I became acutely aware of Lucian's gaze lingering on me longer than usual. A strange warmth spread through me, but I stayed composed, gripping the beer can in my hand as though it could anchor me. Before I realized it, Lucian had moved closer, his actions swift and unanticipated. His embrace was fervent, his kiss igniting emotions we had both suppressed for far too long. I couldn't resist him. My mind screamed against it, but my body responded instinctively. That night, the boundaries between us dissolved, and the darkness of the room became a witness to a pivotal transformation. We crossed a line that could never be undone, surrendering to emotions we had fought so hard to ignore. It was a moment that redefined everything, leaving us in a space we couldn't return from. As dawn broke and sunlight streamed through the curtains, I found myself lying beside Lucien in my bed. The world outside remained unchanged, but within me, everything had shifted. In the days that followed, while our parents were still away, Lucien and I reveled in the stolen time together. Even the most mundane activities, sharing meals, watching movies, felt intimate, as if we were a couple freed from the constraints of familial ties. The knowledge of what we had done weighed heavily on me, yet I couldn't bring myself to regret it entirely. For those brief days, we lived in a fragile bubble, pretending reality didn't exist. When our parents returned, the house reverted to its usual rhythm, and Lucien and I resumed our roles as siblings. We acted as though nothing had happened, but the stolen glances and quiet understanding between us told a different story. Our secret remained buried, shared only in whispers and fleeting moments. Each night, after the house fell silent, Lucien would sneak into my room. In the darkness, we clung to each other, disregarding the boundaries that had kept us apart. During the day, we maintained a facade of normalcy, family meals, casual conversations, but beneath the surface, a concealed tension simmered. It was a delicate balance, an unspoken truth that kept us tethered to our secret. The strain of living this double life was suffocating, yet it also held a bittersweet allure. I felt guilt gnawing at me slowly, yet it lacked the strength to compel me to change. I abandoned my efforts and chose to endure, despite the secretive events that unfolded nightly. Every moment with Lucien became so familiar that I feared I might never break free. Eventually, I recognized that I could no longer bear this relationship. Secretly and meticulously, I started taking contraceptive pills without anyone's knowledge. While the implications of this connection haunted me, I decided to assert control rather than walk away. I convinced myself that an alternative path was still possible. Nearly a year later, Lucien graduated and left for college in another city. Despite my reluctance to admit it, his departure created a rift between us. I anticipated that things would change. No more clandestine evenings, no more quiet moments together. The separation forced us to put our bond on pause. Even so, I was burdened by nostalgia. After my graduation, I decided to carve out a new direction for myself. I applied for an office job in the digital field. The role was unremarkable, but provided stability, distancing me from the chaos and emotional turmoil of the past. Amid this newfound routine, I met someone who profoundly altered the course of my life. He owned a flourishing hair salon in the city and exuded a calm yet magnetic presence. From our very first meeting, his strength and tenderness captivated me. Unlike anyone I had ever known, he made me feel safe in a way I had never experienced. Our connection developed naturally, as if fate had brought us together. In time, we married and began building the family life I had always dreamed of. Raising a child alongside him brought completeness and joy. Together, we created precious memories that momentarily eclipsed the haunting fragments of my past. Still, the shadows of those hidden days with Lucien occasionally surfaced, unsettling me in moments of vulnerability. Yet I found solace in my new sanctuary, my husband and our child. Despite my happiness, there remained a part of me that carried shame about my past, especially regarding Lucien. My husband, a remarkable and loving man, deserved transparency. Yet every time I looked into his eyes, I felt the weight of secrecy pressing on my heart. I wondered if I should tell him about my history, fearing that revealing it could destroy everything we had built. At night, my thoughts tormented me, leaving me torn between confessing the truth or safeguarding my family by maintaining silence. What if he viewed me differently after learning everything? What if our small, cherished family unraveled because of my admission? Yet keeping this secret felt like carrying a heavy stone that grew more burdensome each day. I questioned whether I deserved the unconditional love he offered when I couldn't be entirely honest. Now, standing at a crossroads, I find myself uncertain of which path to take. Should I face the consequences by revealing my past, or should I protect the life we have built by keeping it hidden? I turn to you for guidance. What would you do in my position? Would you confess and risk everything, or would you remain silent, burying the past in hopes it never resurfaces? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I welcome your advice, empathy, or criticism as I navigate this difficult decision.